This is the WSAU Wisconsin Morning News from AM 550, FM 99.9, and WSAU.com.
All right, folks. It took me a long time to rehash all the stuff that has happened in this story to catch up you who have not been following it, because not everyone listens every single day, and so I had to catch up the people that are listening that might not be aware of the story. So, to rehash, just real quick, so you have the Seth Rich story, and you have the DNC email leaks, and you have the Wikileaks founder saying, basically, without fully revealing it, that Seth Rich was the source. So then you have now someone who's willing to testify in front of U.S. authorities, whoever the authority would be, willing to do so, that he knows for sure, he's saying that Seth Rich was indeed the leaker of the DNC emails. It's significant because when you tie it in with the Russian conspiracy theories, of course, it all started with, well, the Russians provided the WikiLeaks DNC emails. And if that's proven to be false, well, I say the whole foundation of everything about the Russian collusion and the Russian collusion with Trump falls apart completely. So that's why I have considered this a significant story. Now, with Kim.com coming out and basically putting themselves out there, not being anonymous, but coming out and saying, I'm willing to testify about this, Sean Hannity saw this on the emails and started picking up on this. Sean Hannity wants to interview Kim.com. Well, Tuesday came. Kim.com has revealed what he's known. He's been using his Twitter account. Hannity, I'm sure, wants him as a guest, but Hannity is now backing off. That's because the parent company, Fox News, feels like you don't deal in conspiracy theories. But I have just pointed out before we came into the segment, the WikiLeaks Seth Rich story is not a conspiracy theory. There is beyond evidence that this is true, and you have not an unnamed source, not a secret source, but someone who is willing to put their name and reputation on the line and testify that this is true. So much more different than what what CNN is doing with the Russian story, right? But they're worried about the family because the family keeps pushing and requesting that people leave this story alone because they don't want their son used as a political tool.
This goes back what we said in the last case. And Sean Hannity, he's a Hall of Fame communicator. He'll make this point. Maybe Seth Rich was the leaker and was killed as part of a robbery. Those things are mutually exclusive. Right. And I hope that Sean Hannity has the freedom, I suspect he does, to go after and pursue the Kim.com source, because that would be a blockbuster interview.
Yes, I think he is pursuing it. But because of the family reaching out to him and because of the family trying to stop the story, the family reached out to Kim.com. What the response to the family should be is, we understand that the story of the DNC killing Seth Rich is a conspiracy theory. Now, as a talk show host, I can talk about conspiracy theories. I'm not a reporter. I don't pretend to be a reporter. I'm not Wolf Blitzer. See, Wolf Blitzer is the CNN news guy. He's not supposed to push conspiracy theories. He actually is supposed to push facts. But he's been pushing conspiracy theories this whole time with the Russian story. That's totally different. If Wolf Blitzer had a talk show, he could push the Russian conspiracy theory. It's totally different. It's a whole different thing. So I could talk about the DNC conspiracy theory if I want to. I don't even find it that important whether the DNC was behind whether Seth Rich was killed or not. It doesn't matter. I'm focused on blowing up the Russian story. And the Russian story is blown up because Seth Rich is the leaker of the DNC emails. I'm convinced of it, 100% convinced. You have people on record willing to do it, and you have WikiLeaks itself basically admitting he was it. What more do you need? How much more evidence do you need? Here's Sean Hannity talking about it last night.
The unsolved murder of former DNC staffer Seth Rich continues to get a huge amount of attention. Now, I want to say something. I totally, completely understand how upset, how hard this is on this family, especially over the recent coverage of Seth's death. Now, I have been communicating with them. I got a very heartfelt note. I also sent them a heartfelt note back. I reached out personally today to Seth's brother, Aaron. I expressed my condolences out over how hard, how difficult this has been for him and his family. And as I told Aaron, my heart, my soul, my prayers, everything goes out to them in this very difficult time. I'm a father. I know, I don't think I'd ever recover from losing a child or a brother. I honestly don't think I would. I cannot imagine the pain that they are in. And as a father, when I saw the video of the parents online saying they want answers, and I know the brother Aaron started a GoFundMe page, it truly pained me. However, out of respect for the family's wishes for now, I am not discussing this matter at this time. Now, let me explain this. There are so many issues here, not the least of which is the Democratic push of their Russia narrative, collusion, Trump-Russia narrative, Trump-Russia narrative. There's something clearly happening here. The Destroy Trump media, the Democrats, they have been pushing that Russian tin-foil hat conspiracy theory with zero evidence. For example, earlier today on Capitol Hill, former CIA
Now he goes
director
in, and that's it. That's all he says, and he's basically saying he backs down. And then he goes into the Russian conspiracy thing, and he never really addresses again. I saw this live, and so when I was watching it, before he got into that, he talked about how his advertisers for the show are being attacked by the left, and they're trying to shut down his advertising. This also, we have Fox News trying to back off this story. So there's obviously pressure from the family and other people, and I would say the Democrat Party itself, the DNC, has been pressuring them to back off on this story. And they put pressure on him because they're saying this is a conspiracy theory. Obviously, there was a meeting or something, and Hannity knows that the Russian, as you can hear what he was saying, the Russian narrative and the Wikileaks source part of the story, he can still deal with. But he's being forced by Fox News not to discuss. It's pretty clear to me. He's being forced not to discuss, Seth Rich and the DNC murder. So he can go forth on the Russian investigation and whether Seth Rich was the WikiLeaks leaker. That's what it seems like to me.
By the way, Sean Hannity should have been much more clear in that statement.
He was not clear at all. I'm reading into this.
Because you and I can say this just a few short words. Sean Hannity should have said, I'm not investigating who killed Seth Rich.
Yes.
Seth Rich is dead. That's a tragedy for his family. I'm not talking about or investigating that.
Yes.
I am very much talking about and investigating who is the leaker, if it's Seth Rich or someone else, because that is what either proves or disproves the Russian narrative or some other theory.
That's what he has to do to go forward, or else Fox News is going to come down on him.
And he was not clear about that. By the way, there's something else happening behind the scenes at Fox News that we should simply put on the table. Mm-hmm. News Corp, Fox News parent company, wants to be involved in a very big merger in the UK, a merger that needs government approval in the UK. They want to buy out Sky News. Sky News is a rival news organization. They partner with Fox News here in the U.S. Because that requires government approval in the UK, there are some who say Rupert Murdoch's children, who are going to run the company eventually, do not want conspiracy theories or what they consider to be fringe stories in their news coverage. They're wondering if it will run afoul of regulators in the UK who they need a big approval from for that merger to go forward. That's very much on the table for what Fox News and their parent company News Corp covers and doesn't cover these days.
See, I love when you add things like that because I'm not aware of some things like that, and then you can throw that in there, and that broadens the perspective of our audience to understand what's going on here. So, look, you have Hannity, and the left is all excited because they think he's backing off on this. I don't think he's fully backing off, but I can tell that there's pressure at Fox News on Hannity. Hannity is not a news reporter and should be allowed to discuss a conspiracy theory regardless, as far as I'm concerned, because his show Hannity is not it's opinionated news. It is not. He's not Wolf Blitzer, the equivalent. The equivalent of Wolf Blitzer at Fox News is someone like a Brit Hume or who am I thinking of? I'm going blank on his name. Anyways, you know who I'm talking about, the people that are doing it. There's hard news guys. Brett Baer also. He would be more of an equivalent of a Wolf Blitzer than Sean Hannity. So Sean Hannity should be allowed, if he wanted to discuss the conspiracy theory, if he wanted to or not. This story doesn't hinge on whether Seth Rich was killed by the DNC. I admit that's a conspiracy theory. I've said on this show, hey, the conservatives should play hardball here. If they're going to run with a conspiracy theory story about the Russian collusion, then conservative media should play hardball and run with a conspiracy theory that the DNC killed Seth Rich. Why not? It's the same thing. They could do that if they wanted to, but we're too wimpy and we don't do it. Of course, I'm not. I'll deal with these topics regardless. And thank goodness I have the freedom here to do so, and that's a credit to the company. That's a credit, and you should thank God that Midwest, the parent company of this station, allows me to be on the air and allows Chris to be my boss and give me freedom to do these things. That is not always the case everywhere. I've worked at places where they like to crack down on things that you say, even though you're presenting facts. All I'm doing is presenting the facts here. And here are the facts. It is quite clear, and we have people willing to testify in Congress, that Seth Rich leaked the DNC emails and wound up dead. Those are the facts. Was it a robbery? Who knows? Doesn't matter. He's the DNC email leaker, not the Russians. The Russian story has been a lie from the beginning, and they should be exposed, the mainstream media, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, as liars, perpetuating a lie and continuing to perpetuate a lie. They are blown up by this story. They're freaking out, and they're trying to put pressure on Fox News, Sean Hannity, and anyone else they can to stop this story from getting out. But guess what? There's a thing called the internet, and there's people like you. It's up to you to spread this story, because the main national hosts are going to be pressured not to cover it. Trust me, folks. They can't cover it up if you spread the story. Stick around. More to come.
A full dose of the day's events.
The news you need, the issues you're passionate about.
I find that very disturbing.
AM 550, FM 99.9, WSAU.